Have you ever looked at your bank account and wondered if you accidentally signed up for a subscription service called Broke Life Premium? You know the feeling. You work hard, you think you're being responsible with money, yet somehow that magical six-figure savings goal feels about as attainable as becoming a professional unicorn trainer. Well, here's the thing that might surprise you. Reaching your first $100,000 isn't just some fantasy reserved for trust fund babies and crypto millionaires who got lucky buying Dogecoin with their lunch money. The truth is, once you understand the psychology behind wealth building and implement the right strategies, that first 100,000 can happen faster than you think. And here's what's really wild about this milestone. It's not just another number in your account. It's the point where your money starts working harder than your cousin who posts motivational quotes on LinkedIn every morning. Once you hit that mark, compound interest becomes your best friend, and the next 100,000 comes significantly quicker. And I've spent years studying personal finance, helping people break through the barriers that keep them stuck in financial mediocrity. If you're serious about transforming your financial future and you want practical strategies that actually work, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button, because what I'm about to share could be the difference between retiring comfortably and eating ramen noodles in your 70s. Now, before we dive into the strategies, let me paint you a picture of what we're really dealing with here. Most people approach saving money like they approach going to the gym on January 1st. They have great intentions. They might even start strong, but then life happens, motivation fades, and before they know it, they're back to their old habits, wondering why they can't make progress. The problem isn't willpower, it's that they're fighting an uphill battle without the right tools and strategies. Think about it this way. If you were trying to fill up a bucket, but that bucket had holes in the bottom, you could pour water in there all day long and still end up with nothing. That's exactly what happens to most people with their money. They work hard to earn it, but they haven't plugged the leaks in their financial bucket. They haven't optimized their systems. They're essentially trying to solve a math problem with crayons when they should be using a calculator. The wealthy understand something that the middle class often misses entirely. Building wealth isn't about making massive sacrifices or living like a monk. It's about making strategic decisions that compound over time. It's about understanding that every dollar you save today is actually several dollars in the future thanks to the magic of compound growth. But here's the catch. You have to be smart about how you do it. Let me share something that might blow your mind. The average person thinks that saving money is about cutting out their daily coffee or skipping avocado toast. And sure, those small expenses add up over time, but they're missing the forest for the trees. The real money is in the big ticket items and the systems you set up to automate your wealth building. We're talking about strategies that can free up hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars every single month without making you feel like you're living in financial prison. Throughout this video, I'm going to walk you through a comprehensive system for reaching that first $100,000 faster than you ever thought possible. We're going to cover everything from the psychological traps that keep people broke to the specific tactical moves that the wealthy use to accelerate their savings rate. And yes, I'm going to reveal that one strategy I mentioned earlier that can free up a massive chunk of your budget. When you hear what it is, you're going to wonder why more people aren't talking about it. But first, let's address the elephant in the room. Why is the first 100,000 so much harder than the ones that come after? It's not just because of compound interest, although that plays a huge role. It's because when you're starting out, you're doing all the heavy lifting yourself. Every dollar in that account came directly from your paycheck, your side hustle, or your business. You're essentially building the foundation of your financial house brick by brick. However, once you reach that $100,000 milestone, something magical starts to happen. Your money begins earning meaningful returns. Instead of seeing a few dollars in interest each month, you start seeing hundreds or even thousands. That 10% annual return that seemed insignificant on a $5,000 portfolio now represents $10,000 of growth on your $100,000 nest egg. Suddenly, your investments are working almost as hard as you are. This is why Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's longtime business partner, famously said that the first 100,000 is the hardest. Once you get that snowball rolling down the hill, momentum takes over. But getting to that point requires strategy, discipline, and most importantly, the right knowledge about what actually moves the needle. Here's what most financial advice gets wrong. They focus on the small stuff while ignoring the big opportunities. They tell you to clip coupons and shop sales while your housing costs are eating up half your income. They suggest you invest in the stock market without explaining how taxes can destroy your returns if you're not careful. They preach about emergency funds, but never mention how to optimize your cash flow, so you need less of an emergency fund in the first place. The strategies I'm about to share with you are different. These aren't band-aid solutions or feel-good tips that make you think you're making progress while keeping you stuck in the same place. These are the real deal tactics that can fundamentally change your financial trajectory. Some of them might challenge conventional wisdom, some of them might require you to think differently about money than you ever have before. But if you're willing to keep an open mind and take action on what you learn, you could be looking at your first $100,000 sooner than you ever imagined. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Nick, this sounds great, but I'm starting from zero. I've got student loans, credit card debt, and I'm barely making ends meet as it is. I hear you, and I want you to know that these strategies work regardless of where you're starting from. In fact, some of them are even more powerful when you're in the early stages of your wealth building journey. The key is understanding that wealth building is a skill, just like learning to drive a car or play an instrument. Nobody expects to be perfect at it right away, but with the right instruction and consistent practice, you can master it. The difference is that this particular skill has the power to transform every aspect of your life. It can give you freedom, security, and options that you never had before. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to walk you through 9 specific strategies that can accelerate your path to that first $100,000. Each one of these has the potential to save or earn you thousands of dollars per year. When you combine them together, they create a powerful system that can dramatically reduce the time it takes to reach your goal. Some of these strategies might seem obvious when I first mention them, but I guarantee you're not implementing them correctly. Others might surprise you because they go against everything you've been taught about money. But stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll have a complete roadmap for accelerating your wealth building in ways that most people never even consider. Let's start with strategy number 9, and this one is going to save you more money than you probably realize. We're talking about tax optimization, and no, I don't mean hiding money in offshore accounts or pretending your Netflix subscription is a business expense. I'm talking about legitimate strategies that the government actually wants you to use, but for some reason, most people completely ignore them. Here's the reality. Taxes are probably one of your biggest expenses, right up there with housing and transportation. Yet most people put more thought into choosing their morning coffee than they do into minimizing their tax burden. It's like voluntarily paying extra for everything you buy just because you didn't bother to look for a coupon that was sitting right there in front of you. The beautiful thing about tax-advantaged accounts like traditional IRAs and 401ks is that they give you an immediate discount on every dollar you invest. When you contribute to these accounts, you reduce your taxable income dollar for dollar. So if you're making $50,000 a year and you contribute $10,000 to your 401k, you only pay taxes on $40,000 of income. That's like getting a guaranteed return before your investments even have a chance to grow. But here's where it gets really interesting. Let's say you're in the 22% tax bracket. Every $1,000 you contribute to a traditional 401k saves you $220 in taxes. That means you only need to come up with $780 out of your actual take-home pay to make a $1,000 investment. The government is essentially giving you a discount on building wealth, and most people are too busy complaining about taxes to take advantage of it. Strategy number 8 is one that literally gives you free money, yet millions of Americans leave it on the table every single year. I'm talking about employer 401k matching. And if you're not maxing this out, you're basically telling your boss you don't want a raise. Think about it this way. If your employer offers a 50% match on your contributions up to 6% of your salary, they're giving you an immediate 50% return on your investment before the stock market even gets involved. Let's break this down with real numbers. If you make $50,000 a year and your employer matches 50 cents for every dollar up to 6% of your salary, you could contribute $3,000 and your employer would add another $1,500. That's $1,500 of completely free money that you get just for participating. Show me another investment that guarantees you a 50% return on day one. I'll wait. The crazy part is that people will spend hours researching the best deal on a new phone to save $50, but they'll leave thousands of dollars in employer matching on the table because they think they can't afford to contribute to their 401k. It's like refusing a guaranteed winning lottery ticket because you're worried about the taxes you'll have to pay on your winnings. Now let's talk about strategy number 7, and this is where we start getting into the fun stuff. I'm talking about creating additional income streams that are specifically earmarked for investing. Notice I didn't say get a second job or work more hours at your current job. I said create additional income streams, and there's a huge difference. The traditional advice is to live below your means, which basically translates to make your life smaller so you can save more money. But there's another approach that's way more powerful and a lot more enjoyable. Expand your means while keeping your lifestyle constant. Instead of trying to squeeze every penny out of your current income, focus on bringing in more money that goes directly toward your wealth building goals. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't feel like deprivation. You're not cutting back on the things you enjoy, you're just creating extra money that was never part of your regular budget in the first place. It's like finding money in your couch cushions, except instead of finding $20, you're finding hundreds or thousands of dollars every month. This could be anything from freelancing in your area of expertise to starting a small side business that operates on evenings and weekends. The key is to treat this extra income differently than your regular paycheck. Your regular income covers your living expenses and lifestyle. This extra income has one job: building wealth. When you separate these two mentally, it becomes much easier to save aggressively without feeling like you're sacrificing. Strategy number 6 is going to test your self-control, but it's absolutely crucial if you want to maximize your returns. I'm talking about reinvesting every single dividend that comes your way instead of spending it on something fun. I know, it feels great when you see that dividend payment hit your account. It's like your investments are paying you a salary for being smart enough to own them. But here's the thing that most people don't realize. The real power of dividend investing isn't in the income you can spend today. It's in the compound growth you get from reinvesting those payments. When you take those dividends and buy more shares, you're essentially getting more dividend paying assets, which will pay you even more dividends in the future, which you can use to buy even more shares. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill, getting bigger and faster as it goes. Let me put this in perspective with some real numbers that might shock you. Over the past century, the S&P 500 has averaged about 10.7% annual returns when dividends are reinvested. But if you had taken those dividends as cash instead of reinvesting them, your average return would have been only 6.6%. That 4% difference might not sound like much, but over 30 years of investing, it's the difference between having a comfortable retirement and wondering if you can afford to retire at all. This is one of those strategies that requires you to think long term and resist the temptation of instant gratification. Every time you get a dividend payment, you have a choice. You can either spend it on something that will be forgotten in a few weeks, or you can use it to buy more wealth-generating assets that will pay you dividends for decades to come. Strategy number 5 is all about keeping more of what you earn by minimizing investment fees. This might sound boring, but I promise you it's one of the most important things you can do to accelerate your wealth building. Investment fees are like a silent tax on your returns, and most people have no idea how much they're actually paying or how dramatically these fees can impact their long-term wealth. Here's what's crazy about investment fees. They might seem small on an annual basis, but they compound just like your returns do, except they compound against you. A fund that charges a 1% annual fee versus a fund that charges 0.1% might not seem like a big deal, But over 30 years, that extra 0.9% in fees can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost returns. The good news is that in today's market, you don't have to pay high fees to get excellent investment options. Index funds that track the S&P 500 are basically identical products regardless of which company offers them, so there's no reason to pay more for the same thing. It's like choosing between two identical cars where one costs $30,000 and the other costs $35,000. Why would you pay more for the exact same product? When you're building your first $100,000, every dollar counts, and every dollar you save on fees is a dollar that can compound and grow over time. This is one of those areas where a little bit of research upfront can literally save you tens of thousands of dollars over your investing lifetime. Strategy number 4 is going to challenge everything you've been told about being a smart investor, but trust me on this one. I'm talking about resisting the urge to constantly buy and sell your investments based on market movements. I know it sounds counterintuitive because we're surrounded by financial news that makes it seem like successful investing is all about timing the market perfectly, but that's complete nonsense. Here's the reality that nobody wants to admit. Trying to time the market is like trying to predict which elevator will arrive first in a busy office building. You might get lucky once or twice, but over time, you're just going to end up frustrated and probably worse off than if you had just pressed the button and waited patiently. The data on this is crystal clear. The average investor who tries to time the market consistently underperforms the market itself by several percentage points annually. Think about what happens when you try to be clever with your investments. The market drops 10%. And suddenly you're convinced this is the beginning of the next Great Depression. You sell everything, feeling smart for limiting your losses. Then the market recovers and goes up 20%. But you're still sitting in cash waiting for the right time to get back in. By the time you finally convince yourself it's safe to invest again, you've missed most of the recovery. The math here is brutal. If you miss just the 10 best days in the stock market over a 30-year period, your returns get cut almost in half. And here's the kicker. Those best days often happen right after the worst days when everyone is panicking and selling. So the people who are trying to be smart by avoiding the bad days end up missing the good days too. When you're building your first $100,000, your job is simple. Put money in consistently and leave it alone. Let the market do what it does best, which is grow over time. Some years will be great, some years will be terrible, and most years will be somewhere in between. But if you stay the course and keep feeding the machine, you'll be amazed at what compound growth can accomplish. Strategy number 3 is where we talk about actually choosing the right investments. And this is where most people either overthink it to death or don't think about it at all. Both approaches will cost you serious money. On one hand, you've got people who spend hours researching individual stocks, trying to find the next Amazon or Apple, usually ending up with a portfolio that looks like they threw darts at the financial section of a newspaper. On the other hand, you've got people who just put their money wherever their buddy at work told them to, or worse, they leave it sitting in a savings account earning basically nothing. Here's the truth about investment selection when you're starting out. Your goal should be solid, consistent growth. Not hitting home runs. You're not trying to get rich quick. You're trying to get rich for sure. The best way to do this is by investing in broad market index funds, particularly those that track the S&P 500. This gives you ownership in about 500 of the largest, most successful companies in America, all in one simple investment. Think about what this means. When you buy an S&P 500 index fund, you own a piece of Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and hundreds of other companies that are making money hand over fist. These aren't speculative bets on the next big thing. These are established businesses with proven track records of creating wealth for their shareholders. The beauty of this approach is that you don't need to be a financial genius to succeed. You don't need to read annual reports or analyze price to earnings ratios or figure out what the Federal Reserve is going to do next week. You just need to buy a piece of American business success and let capitalism do what it does best. For young investors who are decades away from retirement, you might even consider tilting slightly toward growth-oriented funds, which focus on companies that are expanding rapidly. These can be more volatile in the short term, but when you have time on your side, that volatility becomes your friend because it gives you more opportunities to buy shares at discounted prices. Strategy number 2 is probably the most important one on this entire list, and it's the one that separates people who build real wealth from people who stay stuck in the financial hamster wheel forever. I'm talking about avoiding lifestyle inflation, and this is where most people completely sabotage their financial future without even realizing it. Here's how this trap works. You start your career making, let's say, $40,000 a year. You live in a modest apartment, drive a used car, and eat a lot of pasta because that's what you can afford. Then you get a promotion and suddenly you're making $50,000. Instead of saving that extra $10,000, you decide you deserve a nicer apartment because you've worked hard for this raise. Then you get another raise to $60,000 and now you deserve a nicer car. Before you know it, you're making twice as much as when you started, but you're still living paycheck to paycheck. The wealthy understand something that most people miss entirely. Your lifestyle should be based on what you want your life to look like, not on what you happen to be earning at the moment. Every time your income increases, you have a choice. You can either inflate your lifestyle to match your new income, or you can maintain your current lifestyle and invest the difference. Here's what's really crazy about lifestyle inflation. It doesn't even make most people happier. Studies show that once your basic needs are met, additional spending has diminishing returns on happiness. That upgrade from a Honda Civic to a BMW might feel great for a few weeks, but then it just becomes your normal car. Meanwhile, that extra car payment is preventing you from building the kind of wealth that could give you real freedom and security. The average millionaire saves over half of their income. That's not because they're miserly or they hate spending money. It's because they understand that every dollar they save today is several dollars they'll have in the future. They've learned to find satisfaction in growing their net worth rather than impressing people with expensive stuff. When you get your next raise, here's what I want you to do. Take at least half of that increase and immediately set up an automatic investment. Don't even let it hit your checking account where you might be tempted to spend it. Treat it like a tax that goes directly to your future self. You can still enjoy some of that extra income, but make sure your wealth is growing faster than your lifestyle. And now we've reached strategy number 1, the big one I've been teasing throughout this entire video. This is the strategy that can free up more money in your budget than any other single change you can make, and most people are completely ignoring it. I'm talking about optimizing your housing costs, and yes, this might require you to make some decisions that go against conventional wisdom. Here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to talk about. If you're spending more than 30% of your income on housing, you're making it nearly impossible to build wealth quickly. For most people, housing is by far their largest expense. When you add up rent or mortgage, utilities, insurance, and maintenance, it often eats up 40, 50, or even 60% of their monthly income. At that point, you're essentially working just to keep a roof over your head. But here's what's interesting about housing costs. They're often the most flexible part of your budget, even though people treat them like they're set in stone. You might think you need to live in a certain area or have a certain amount of space, but those are often lifestyle choices rather than actual necessities. Now, I'm not suggesting you move into a cardboard box under a bridge, but I am suggesting you get creative about reducing this massive expense, at least temporarily while you're building your foundation of wealth. This could mean getting roommates to split the cost, moving to a less expensive area, or even exploring house hacking strategies where you buy a small multi-unit property and live in one unit while renting out the others. The numbers on this are absolutely staggering. Let's say you're currently spending $2,000 a month on housing and you find a way to cut that to $1,200. That's $800 a month that you can now invest, which is nearly $10,000 a year. Over 20 years, assuming a 10% annual return, that single change could add over $500,000 to your net worth. I know what some of you are thinking. Nick, I can't just move or get roommates. I have a career, a family, responsibilities. I get it, and I'm not saying everyone can or should make dramatic changes to their housing situation. But I am saying that if you're serious about building wealth quickly, you need to at least explore your options. Maybe you can't cut your housing costs in half, but could you cut them by 20%? even that would make a huge difference over time. The key is to remember that this doesn't have to be permanent. You're not signing up for a lifetime of living like a college student. You're making a strategic sacrifice for a few years to set yourself up for decades of financial freedom. Once you've built that solid foundation of wealth, you can afford to live wherever you want, because your investments will be covering a significant portion of your expenses. Here's the thing about all these strategies: they work best when you use them together. Each one amplifies the others, creating a powerful system that can dramatically accelerate your path to financial independence. Tax optimization saves you money that you can invest. Employer matching gives you free money to compound. Additional income streams provide more fuel for the wealth-building fire. Reinvesting dividends maximizes your returns. Low fees keep more money working for you. Avoiding market timing prevents costly mistakes. Choosing the right investments ensures solid growth. Avoiding lifestyle inflation keeps your savings rate high. And optimizing housing costs frees up the most money to put toward your goals. When you implement all of these strategies consistently, reaching that first $100,000 transforms from a distant dream into an inevitable outcome. It's not about making perfect decisions every single day. It's about building systems that work automatically even when motivation fades or life gets complicated. Remember, the first 100,000 is special because it's where momentum really starts to build. Once you reach that milestone, compound interest becomes a much more noticeable force in your financial life. Your investments start earning real money, not just pocket change. That's when building wealth starts to feel less like pushing a boulder up a hill and more like riding a wave. The path to financial independence isn't complicated, but it does require patience, consistency, and the willingness to make some unconventional choices. Most people will continue to live paycheck to paycheck, spending everything they earn and hoping that somehow, someday, their financial situation will magically improve. But you have the knowledge and the tools to write a different story. Your future self is counting on the decisions you make today. Every dollar you save and invest now is a gift to that person you'll become in 10, 20, or 30 years. The question is, what kind of gift are you going to give? If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because I'll be sharing more strategies to help you build wealth and create the financial future you deserve. Until next time, keep building that wealth, one smart decision at a time.